So you want to learn how to sell better on eBay, Etsy, Mercari, Poshmark, Grailed, and Depop? Well, I have personally selected 30 of my sales from the month of February to show you, to maybe help you sell better in the future. Let's go.
Welcome to Over the Years. My name is Tim, and I love vintage items. I hunt for treasures and bring you the ultimate prizes of antiques, collectibles, and vintage decor. Join me, my dukes, my girlfriend Josie, and other guests as we search for history.
Welcome to Over the Years. My name is Tim. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and the subscribe button while you're here. So, I am a full-time reseller, and I sell on 6 platforms. That's eBay, Etsy, Mercari, Poshmark, Depop, and Grailed. And today, we're going to do a what sold video. So, I took 30 sales across the 6 platforms. So, I picked a few from each platform to kind of give you guys an idea of the variety of things that you can sell to help yourself be successful as a reseller, whether part-time or full-time. So as we go through these items, I'll give you pieces of information that might prove helpful for you in the future, whether you're outsourcing, pricing, or just, working your reseller game. So if you have any questions, don't forget to leave those in the comments section. You can also find us on Instagram at Over the Years eBay and at Over the Years Collecting. So for those of you that don't know, I do sell a lot of different things, antiques, glass, vintage collectibles, vintage decor, sports cards, sports memorabilia, clothing, you name it, I sell it. So, and I think that's one of the biggest things I want to get across to you in this What Sold video is it is beneficial if you learn as many things to resell as you possibly can. That way, when you go to a thrift store, an auction, or a yard sale, estate sale, whatever you do, it opens your eyes to a lot more options on how to make money reselling. Also, I sell on 6 platforms, which is another thing that I suggest if you can handle it. Because not everybody has the time or the resources to do that, but it does help you because it gets your more eyes on your items, which is always a good thing. So let's jump right into it. The first thing I'm going to show you is going to be from eBay. This is a lot of vintage Super Bowl programs from the 1980s. This was a lot of 8 Super Bowl programs. I actually bought a lot of 25, I believe, Super Bowl programs mixed in with a couple of other things, and I paid $25 for it. So I was basically in for around $1 per program, if I can remember. I actually had these sitting around for a long time, but the past month when Super Bowl was coming up, I said, you know what, I should list these because it's a Super Bowl. So that's the first tip, is to always be aware of what's going on in the world, because it might be helpful to you to list certain things that coincide with what's going on or what's trending. So that's what I did here. And I sold the lot of 8 Super Bowl programs for $41.99 plus shipping. Next up is a pair of cufflinks. So I actually have a whole lot left of these cufflinks and tie clips, and I was in for like $1 or $2 for these. I bought it as a lot. These were really nice. So I honestly believe that in the realm of tie clips and cufflinks, mid-century modern, Art Deco, or novelty, I guess you could say, are 3 of the things that you want to look for when reselling these items. So these actually were vintage cufflinks. I'm not going to be able to say this word. I'm bad at stuff like that. Sorry in advance. Intaglio, mid-century modern, mother of pearl Roman soldier. So what that word means is the mother of pearl Roman soldier was actually designed inside of the glass, which was really cool. So those sold for $31.99 plus shipping. The next item up is a vintage t-shirt. This was a vintage 1980s Winston Cup series single stitch made in the USA t-shirt. Had this sick computer graphic. I actually bought a lot of NASCAR t-shirts a while ago, and I still have a few left, and this was one that finally sold. So things that you want to look out for as far as vintage clothing goes, anytime there's a sick graphic or, you know, something that really stands out, that's always a plus. T-shirts that are made in the USA is a plus, and then single stitch when the sleeves of the shirts only have one stitch on there, that's also a plus. So this had a lot of, and NASCAR stuff really sells well also, especially vintage NASCAR or all over print NASCAR. And this t-shirt sold for $60 plus shipping. The next item up on eBay was this 2020 Panini Donruss Miko Hardman Jr. The Champ is Here autograph, and it was serial numbered 34 of 49. So I am big into sports cards. You may not be selling sports cards or into sports cards. Eventually, these sort of sales will all go on my sports channel when that launches. But this is another thing I wanted to show you where, you know, the Chiefs were playing in the Super Bowl. So because the Chiefs and Tampa Bay Buccaneers were playing on the Super Bowl, that morning I listed all, or I listed not all, but I listed a lot. I mean, a lot, maybe like 25 to 30 listings of Kansas City Chief players and Tampa Bay Buccaneers players. And that day I ended up selling a lot of those listings that I put up that day. So it's just, again, paying attention to what's going on. Because the Chiefs and Tampa Bay were in the Super Bowl, you know, during the Super Bowl and after the Super Bowl, people were looking for these players. So that was one I took advantage of, that timing, and this sold for $70 plus shipping. Next up is this Canon PowerShot ELPH 340 HS camera lot. I bought this for $5. This is the second one of these that I sold. These Canon PowerShots do really well, especially if you have the box and a lot of the accessories and or manual. So it tested, it worked, and this sold fairly fast, and it sold for $48.99 plus shipping. So Canon PowerShot is definitely something that you guys want to look out for, and you can always comp it when you're in the store to see if it's worth it, because not every single model will sell for that much, and it depends on how much you're getting it for. For me, $5 into $48.99 is a good flip, easy to ship, and it sold pretty fast. Next up is a brand that I just recently got familiar with, and it is Hagen Renaker. They make these horses, and I used to, it's not that I used to pass up horses or horse figurines in general. I just wasn't familiar with the popularity of them, and now I'm always picking up horses. I pick up almost any animal I can. This is like a porcelain figurine. It was a specialty thoroughbred trotting palomino, and it was a retired version of the figurine. It had a sticker on there and the marking on the bottom. I paid $2 for this, and it sold for $31.99 plus shipping. So shout out to Michelle. She was on me about getting horses, and now I'm getting them a lot more, and it definitely paid off in this case. Next up is going to be a big ticket item. This is a vintage royal, I'm once again bad at saying these words, Goldiewagen, and it was a Williamsburg Restoration Virginia tobacco jar. I have sold these in the past. Some of them will say Virginia, some of them will say Maryland, North Carolina. There's all different ones. It is in this Delft blue style. This particular one was a Royal Goldiewagen Williamsburg Restoration. It said Virginia across it, and this one was a large one. I think it was like 16 inches tall, something around there, 14 to 16 inches tall. And this sold for $239.99. So obviously this is something that you visually, when you see this, you know, look out for it. Always check the bottoms of pieces like these to make sure that they're not like super new reproductions. This is definitely something that can be reproduced and is reproduced a lot. So definitely want to just make your comps on that. And the sizes will also dictate the price range for sure. Next up was a really interesting piece of glass. This is a vintage hand-blown amber. I refer to it as manganese glass because under the black light, it does glow into an orange color. So I typically show in my listings of pictures of what it looks like glowing and what it doesn't look like glowing. This was a gorgeous centerpiece fruit bowl, very mid-century modern-esque. And I want to say I paid $9 for this at an estate sale, and it sold for $45 plus shipping. So moving from mid-century to Art Deco, these are eras of time and where you want to kind of familiarize yourself with because they are super popular. This was a Art Deco. It was a naked woman riding a horse. It was brass, and I believed it was a lamp finial. I actually picked this at an antique lighting pick that I went to. It was a giant warehouse. This guy was like a mad scientist. He used to just take apart lighting fixtures and then put them back together. I mean, it was literally thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of stuff. You had to like climb over stuff. It was crazy. But I picked this up for a couple of bucks, and it sold for $50 plus shipping. Another quick, easy item to ship as well. This is an interesting item. This is a vintage Yamaha P-32B Pianica. It is kind of rare. It came with the case and the manual, which is always clutch. This is a musical instrument. You connect the tube to the keyboard and you blow while pressing the keys. This one was made in Japan. Not a lot of them out there. It was very hard to comp. There is newer versions, but none that was this exact version. I paid, I want to say $7.99 for this at the thrift store, and it sold for $75 plus shipping. Next up, this is a name that you guys want to be familiar with as well when it comes to these sort of, I don't want to say furniture, but they made furniture, obviously, but this is like, you know, dresser pieces, vanity pieces. In this case, this is a tea caddy made by Henkel Harris. This was a vintage Henkel Harris mahogany tea caddy, and it had the key. Whenever you can find these things that have keys, wood boxes, anything that has keys with it still always helps. It was made Virginia Galleries, and this tea caddy sold for $199.99. So that's definitely a name you guys want to be on the lookout for. Next up is this vintage Baldwin brass candlestick lamp with shade. Now this was not easy to ship, but I did manage to get it out the door. If you haven't seen any of our shipping videos, I'll put a link up top for you guys to watch those because we really take our shipping seriously, and hopefully these shipping videos can be helpful to you. Now, Baldwin Brass is a company that used to be made in America. I think eventually it got bought out by another big company. It was made in China. But if you can find the Baldwin Brass stuff that's made in America, there are a lot of people out there that look for it. And every time I've had these, they have sold fairly fast. It's definitely something you guys want to keep an eye out for, is the Baldwin Brass. Next up is another sports card. Same sort of situation. Kansas City Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes. I listed this card. This was a 2020 Panini Prism Patrick Mahomes Silver Prism card, and it sold for $100 plus shipping. Next up is another piece of vintage clothing. I finally started selling more clothing. Shout out to Sir Knox Connection. He told me about how to make this board to make taking photos of pictures a lot easier, and it's helped tremendously. I've been attacking my death pile of clothing. This was a really special sweatshirt. I picked this up at a pick with some of the fellas from YouTube, Sir Knox Connection, Tommy Bernhard, Ronnie Hart, and we all met up at Mr. Buys a Lot, and I copped this sweatshirt. It was a vintage 1950s champion running man, so that kind of described the logo on the tag, and it was a beta gamma crew neck sweatshirt, which is like an honor society. So anything vintage champion that old is gonna sell. I mean, this shirt had some damage on it, had some stains on it. I mean, but it was just super rare. And the sweatshirt sold for $125 plus shipping. So huge, awesome pickup there. Next up is another piece of clothing. This was a Harley Davidson flame zip hoodie. So it has like these flames on the arms. Anything Harley Davidson typically will sell, especially with clothing. The older and more unique, obviously, the better. This one was interesting because it was Dudley Perkins, San Francisco, which I believe is the oldest family-owned Harley Davidson shop in the country. And I paid I think it was $2.99 for this at the thrift store, and it sold for $40 plus shipping. Next up is another sports card. So soccer cards are definitely on the rise. This is definitely something, if you're into sports cards, that you want to look into. This was a 2020 Panini Select. It was Cristiano Ronaldo, and it was a light blue, so it was a parallel, it was a die cut, and it was numbered out of 175. This card sold for $114.99. So an awesome profit right there. So this is another piece that goes back to that Virginia tobacco jar that I showed you guys earlier in the video. This is the same company, same Williamsburg restoration, Royal Goldwagon, that Delft blue sort of vibe. This was a punch bowl, and this punch bowl sold for $174.99. So definitely something that you guys want to keep an eye out for is these sort of pieces. Next item up is going to be this Schwinn Whizzer motorbike die cast model. Diecast usually does fairly well. Anything Schwinn usually does very well. When you put those two things together, it creates an item that's going to have a lot of viewers from, different people looking for different items, whether it's Schwinn, whether it's cast iron, whether into bicycles. There's a lot of, it's cross-pollination, if you want to say something. Basically it allows you to have a lot of different eyes on one item, and I love the versatility of items like this. And this sold for $49 plus shipping. Now, Uranium Glass is probably one of my biggest sellers across the platforms, whether it be eBay, Etsy, or Mercari. We've sold well over, I want to say we're probably in the over 400 pieces of Uranium Glass or Vaseline glass. And if you want to know how to photograph uranium and Vaseline glass, I have a video on that, and I'll put a link up top, and it will help you. Like I said, I always like to try to take pictures of it glowing and not glowing, so people understand what they're bidding on, what they're buying, if they're new to that sort of realm of collectibles. This is the antique Northwood glass button panels, opalescent canary yellow Vaseline glass, and it sold for $60 plus shipping. Another thing that you always want to be on the lookout for that is always going to bring good money is Flow Blue. We did a live on Flow Blue. I'll throw a link up there for you guys so you guys can check that out. Give you guys a little bit more background information on what Flow Blue is. This was a sugar bowl. It didn't even have its lid, and it sold for $108 plus shipping. Excuse me. So those are some items from eBay. Now I'm going to show you guys some stuff from Etsy. Sorry if my voice is a little low. I just finished a live vintage sale, and it's been a long day, but I wanted to make sure I got this video out for you guys. So Hall China is something that we're totally into. We love what they do. They make a lot of awesome pieces. This was a Hall China sugar bowl, creamer, and teapot set. It was for Drippolator, and it was for the Enterprise Aluminum Company. Very mid-century modern, yellow and gold. And this item sold, the buyer was all in for $95.80. So definitely Hall China is something you want to look out for. There's some of the Hall China stuff that might take a little longer to sell, but some of the more like hard to find pieces and very like eye-popping designs will do very well. Vintage electronics. Next up is a vintage Panasonic AM/FM radio with a leather case. I picked this up for a couple of bucks, and it sold. The buyer was all in for $63.43. So definitely vintage electronics is something you always want to keep your eye out for. Panasonic, General Electric, things of that nature. And you can, most of the time, if you're in the thrift store, you can test them to a certain extent, obviously. But it's sometimes, if the price is right, it's always worth taking a risk for, because even if it doesn't work, you can still sell it for parts and make a little bit of money. So that just kind of shows you the versatility of some of the things that I can sell on Etsy, the Hall China, even to the vintage electronics. So the next item I'm going to show you guys is from Depop. This is a vintage Bobby Labonte Chase Authentic sweatshirt. Back to NASCAR. The NASCAR stuff sells. Just had a cool design and good colors. And it sold for $24.99. So lucky I'm getting back into clothes, so it allows me the clothes and the hats and the shoes, allows me to cross post these items across all of the platforms, which is what you really want to be able to do to increase your profits. Now we'll move into Mercari. Mercari, I went through this phase where in like a stretch of a week, I sold like 10 pieces of clothing. It was crazy. This is a vintage 1989 Ryder Cup Gore-Tex jacket. Golf, vintage, Ryder Cup, 1989, nice color block, USA. Those are the sort of things you want to look for and will sell. This was actually sort of like one of those things that could have been a collectible piece or something cool for somebody to wear. This jacket cost me, I believe, $4 at the thrift store, and it sold for $49. Next up, back to the Harley Davidson stuff. This was a woman's Harley Davidson motorcycle jacket, and it had some black scuff marks on the shoulder, and it still sold, and it sold for $45. So Harley Davidson, I'm sure most of you already know that, but if you don't, it's definitely something to be on the lookout for. And I wanted to show you guys this piece too, just to reiterate the fact of the horses. So this was an interesting ceramic porcelain horse that I picked up at the flea market for $2. It had an interesting back stamp on it, which turned out to be Russian Lomonosov porcelain. And this horse sold for $43. Oh, I guess I skipped one thing on Etsy. This was another thing I sold on Etsy. This is some more uranium glass, Vaseline glass, and more lighting fixture stuff. So that vintage antique lighting fixtures stuff is really good, really popular. A lot of different buyers. This is a vintage Art Deco amber Vaseline glass etched slip shade wall sconce. And I picked that up for a couple of bucks. It was just one, but I show the picture to you guys, one of it under the black light and one regular. And that sold, the buyer was all in for $60.68. And then Grailed. Back on Grailed with the clothing. This was a vintage 1996 Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl starter shirt. Vintage starter always does well. Super Bowl will do well. Dallas Cowboys will do well. See, right there, you just hit 3 different demographics of people that you could sell this shirt to. I got this shirt in a lot at the auction. I was probably maybe $2 into it, and it sold for $35. Next up, Poshmark. I sold this awesome vintage jacket, super cheap vintage jacket, and it sold for $40. It kind of is like one of those old like medical, like EMS or police jackets. Like I could see I could see what's my man Winslow from Family Matters when he was in Die Hard and he was the police officer. This is the type of jacket he was wearing. So definitely very cool brand to look out for, style to look out for. And that sold for $40, and it sold very fast. So that's 30 items across 6 platforms, a little bit of everything to kind of give you guys an idea of what I've been working on and how I've been selling. Look forward to bringing you guys more of these what sold videos to kind of give you guys more information to help you. That's really what these videos are about. It's not about me bragging about how much I'm selling or what I'm selling or how I'm selling it. It's really about trying to help you guys open up your eyes to other avenues, because that's what happened to me. I was able to find some cool people on YouTube who kind of pointed me in the right direction, and now I'm trying to return the favor. So I look forward to seeing you guys in a couple of days with the first what sold video from items from the first 8 days in the month of March. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys soon. Peace.